Pop quiz. What is a skill? Put it in the chat, please. How would you define the word skill? Nobody knows how to define the word skill? Okay, here we go. Cool. So some of you are defining it, some of you are stating skills. Many of you have said something that you're good at. It's anything that you can do, right? So you might be able to do something, but you don't feel that you're proficient, or you don't feel that you're good at it. We're our harshest critics. So a skill isn't something necessarily that you can just do well. A skill is something that you have knowledge of, that you've tried, that you're working on. It's all about something you can do or know how to do. Um, how many skills does the average person have? Put it in the chat. How many skills does the average person have? So some of you have been here before, which is kind of cool. 500 to 800 skills. If you think about it, how can you be good or do that many skills really, really well, right? But you have the skill or you have the knowledge to perform the skill. I would like you to take out a piece of paper, or if you want to do it via a device, I want you to list in the next, say, 2 minutes, all the skills that you think you have. Just make a list of how many skills that you think you have. I'll give you about 2 minutes. And the definition can be wide. It doesn't have to be just skills that you can apply to a job or that you learned at a job or that you've used at a job. But even though there's too many to list, please put them down, as many as you can in the next 2 minutes. Just make a list. I'm glad you think you have too many to list. That's great. Don't think too hard. Thirty seconds left. Okay. How many skills can the average person identify? So please put in the chat how many skills you listed. I know that this was timed. Cool. Really cool. Awesome. Very impressive. So the average person out there can only identify 10 skills. So the next question is, what percentage of people cannot identify, sell, or prove their skills during an interview? So you know you have these skills. Can you identify them, sell them, and prove them during an interview? What percentage do you think is of people who cannot? These are people who cannot do that. Yep, some of you got it right on the head. It's 80% people cannot do that. Yeah. So part of it is because we don't realize that skills are developed. So which one of these, A through G, do you think we develop skills through? Cool. Yep, it's G. It's G. Yep. So the question is, if you get a skill, what kind of skill, you get a different type of skill socializing with people than you do from a work experience that you might through education, than you might through a hobby or a sports. But all of these are places to develop skills, and they're all skills to keep in mind during your resume, while you're developing your resume, and while you're doing your interviewing. So, what type of skills are most important to employers? What type? So, you've got your resume, you've achieved the interview. What type of skill do you think is important to an employer? Right. So, it is somewhat of a trick question because in order to get the job, your resume has to show that you have the hard skills to perform the tasks. But what they want and are looking for in the interview is soft skills or people skills. They want to know if you'll fit in, right? They want to know if you're going to be a team player and will you adapt and learn. And the adapt and learn part is becomes more of an issue to young people and to older people, because one of the stereotypes is that after a certain age or after so much job experience, you're set in your ways. You're not willing to learn new things, try new things, have new skills that are relevant. So you need to convey in an interview and even in your resume that you can adapt and you can learn. So how does identifying your skills help you with your job search? Right? So it proves your abilities to the potential employer. It helps you write your resume and complete applications, and it helps you sell yourself and your qualifications in the interview, right? You need to know, they would need to know how, like a question that might be asked at an interview to help with people skills is, have you ever dealt with a difficult person? And how have you resolved the issue? Right? And when you take the interview class, you'll learn about STAR questions, or you'll learn about those types of soft skills questions, and then a STAR method for answering them. But you want to convey that you are trainable and that you're adaptable and that you have social skills. So there are three types of skills, and some of you identified that when I asked you to type it in. They're specific to the job or industry. So if you're going to be an accountant, you might need to know how to use spreadsheets. If you're going to work in a lab, you might need to know basic lab procedures. And then you have soft skills. So those are how you get along with people. You know, how do you show up? How do you deal with difficult people? How do you go about organizing your day? How do you organize a project? How do you interact with people? Those are all soft skills, right? Self-management. Do you get upset right away? Do you have a short fuse? Do you ask questions instead of assuming? If you don't know how to do something, do you pretend you do and just do it anyways? And then you have the transferable skills, which are more important to people who are moving from one area to another. If you're a school teacher and you want to do business training, what are your skills? What are the skills, the basic skills that you use for teaching to second graders that you can use for teaching adults? And those are transferable skills. And in between is the sweet spot, right? What do you think is the most important soft skill? Put it in the chat.
There is a lot of listening, communication, which is part of communication.
Right.
Adaptability, initiative.
Cool. Yep. So Bill Gates, we all know who Bill Gates is, says, my people have the confidence in their convictions and they know their skills. So I read into this self-awareness, right? If you are confident in what you can and cannot do, then you're going to be a more effective employee, a more efficient employee, and someone who's good to be around. Smart. What does SMART stand for again, Lana? So confidence and self-awareness, and then you know how you truly react in a situation. You know that you can step up to the plate with your job or hard skills. Those are all really, really important. So you need to know the 3 types of skills: job skills, soft skills, and transferable skills. And you can communicate even soft skills within your resume. Yes, we will send you the deck at the end of the presentation. And you need to be able to understand these skills, and you need to be able to identify them. You need to be able to say, I can do this. You can, having false modesty will not help you with get a job. You don't want to be boastful and arrogant, but you want to be confident and assured. And you want to be able to say, these are the tools I have in my toolbox, right? These are the tools I have in my toolbox. And a good way to maybe get outside input on that is send an email to 20 or 25 people that you know and ask them, could you please list my top 3 skills that you think I have? And you will surprise yourself. Not all 25 will respond, but you'll get enough and there will be a certain commonality to them, even if you send that email to different people in your life. If you send it to former work colleagues, you send it to people within a faith community or a volunteer organization, lifelong friends or family, there will probably be some commonality, and you'll be surprised what people say. And it will help you then stand in those skills and be able to say, yes, I have this skill. I would recommend doing it highly. I've done it for a couple different workshops that I've taken, and it was really a nice surprise. So you might want to try that. All right. So we're going to talk about applications. Before we move to applications, are there any questions about skills before we move on? Anything in the chat? Okay, on to applications. The dreaded
Okay, Miss.
What?
I don't see any. I'm just double checking before you go.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I can't find any right now.
All
Okay.
righty. So the dreaded application. Have your information ready before you start. Even while you're typing, you're doing your word processing, you should always feel positive, and you should always be positive in your application, and you should always be honest, because after you submit that application, it's a legal document. You can be fired for something false. Always use keywords. Keywords are what screens out people or screens people in. It's a chance to sell your skills, use the space wisely, always follow directions, be complete, be neat. I've heard some really weird instructions on applications and have helped people in our career lab here fill out applications that seem to have really unusual instructions. So it never ever hurts to read every application thoroughly. Even if you filled out 100 by now, everyone is different, and you will be screened out if you do not follow those directions. And the way to find out keywords is to read the application, to read the job posting, and then to wordsmith those words into your resume. In a previous job, you might have used the word client, helped clients do this, increased clients' sales by this much. But in the job postings, they say customer. So you might then say, helped customers do this, increased customer base by this much. Yes, Lana?
Somebody put in here tips for finding exact dates for jobs.
Oh, I don't understand the question.
So I'm guessing they're saying tips for finding exact dates for jobs. And if they're asking how do they find exact dates for jobs for previous employment opportunities that they have fulfilled for their application, one, I wouldn't include the exact date, just the month and the year. And then secondly, I would either check with the IRS because they have a track of everywhere that you've ever worked, if that's what the question is. I'm not
Right.
sure. Yeah.
You can do that or go through all tax returns.
Yeah.
I know we only have to keep them for 7 years. Or hopefully you have old resumes that have those dates. If we didn't, or you can call HR, somebody put in the tip, call HR from your past employers. They should have that. But yeah, keywords are important, and having all your information ready. So dates of employment, addresses, phone numbers, name of supervisors, what your salary was, because some applications are timed. So if you don't fill it out within a certain time, it times out and you have to start all over again. So it's really good to collect all your information ahead of time. And it's more information that you have than you have on your resume. It might even be the address of where you worked, the full name, email address, and phone number of your past supervisors. Even if they're not there, and they were friendly, you might want to get their present or current email address and phone number, and then put in the comments that they are no longer at that company. And then if it no longer exists, you can say that in the comments. If you have to fill in the field, say not applicable or NA. And then there's usually a text box where you put in your skills. You can put at the bottom of it, the company no longer exists. And sometimes you have to be more creative than others to answer those questions. I work for a place that no longer exists, and I have no idea how to contact the previous owner. So I have to put that in when I fill out applications. And just like on your resume, you don't have to put in any more than 10 to 15 years, and you only need to put in the month and the year, but some applications do ask for the date. So then I would contact HR if you don't know that particular thing. Besides being prepared and being honest and using keywords, you need to proofread. So I would like you to read this and tell me how many F's you see in this. And put it in the chat. How many F's do you see? Put it in the chat.
Four, 3, 6, 3.
Okay,
Four.
the answer is 6. But if you want to be technical, because I said the screen, the F in proofreading also could count. But proofreading is really, really, really important. Do spell check. Have more than one person read your resume. Read after you do enough applications, you'll find that some of the things they ask for are similar. You can have them in a Word document. Some applications for the state have questions that they ask at the end, but you can then write down or copy the questions, and then you can pause the application process, work on your answer, proofread it, and then come back to the application and put it in. There is nothing that will jettison your application faster than a spelling, grammar, or punctuation error, right? Always, always, always proofread. And we cannot, even if we're a tech writer, if we're an editor, we don't often see our mistakes. My favorite example is my husband was a professor at the University of Minnesota for over 50 years, did a lot of writing, was a great proofreader, and he wrote a book, and we had friends who read the book and found out that he called the same uncle 2 different names in his book, and his editor didn't catch that. He didn't catch that. So in future printings of it, that error was corrected. But the book had been edited not only by his editor, by multiple people, and it just didn't get caught. So you just never know. And we become myopic when we read our own stuff. So you want to make sure that you proofread everything. A good proofreader to have as an app is Grammarly. I have that because I'm dyslexic. And so I take for granted that I don't do anything correctly the first time. So you need to know what your skills are and what your limitations are, and you need to make sure that you correct for that. All right, so this is a much asked question. Reasons for leaving. If you have a concern about answering this question, we're not going to talk about individual cases here. You will be sent in the email with the slide deck a list of locations, career force locations around the state. I strongly recommend you contact your local career force center. People there are trained to help you answer that question. Everyone's situation is different, but you want to use positive language. You don't want to say fired. You don't want to say I left because they were a bunch of morons, or I couldn't learn anything more, so I'm looking for a new opportunity. You want to say things like involuntary separation, downsizing, elimination, you were a temporary or seasonal employee, you resigned because you were looking for more growth opportunities, and that's what I see in this job. But every situation for leaving a job is personal, and you need an individualized answer for that, and we don't have time to do that. And so you're better off contacting someone at your local career force center. So the portfolio. A portfolio is not just for people in the creative field, right? It's not just samples of your artwork, music samples, design samples if you're going into if you're a graphic designer. Everyone can have a portfolio, and as in-person interviews pick up, it's good to take this with you just in case. Your portfolio should include your resume, and if you're doing an in-person interview, it should include multiple copies of your resume and cover letter, just because they might not have them. Their printer might be down, they forgot to share them with the panel, and this way you can show how prepared you are. Your reference sheet, they might not have asked for that, but they might at the time, and so it's good to have copies of that. Letters of recommendation are always good to have, and work samples, which might be kind of iffy if what you previously did was proprietary. You can have annual reviews in it if you would like. But say you designed an awesome spreadsheet that was efficient, saved time, you can show the layout of that spreadsheet without the information in it. I could show PowerPoint presentations that I made for the job club that we have from the South Minneapolis Career Force Center to show my training skills. I could show flyers that I did to promote events that we have here. Lana?
Yes, the question is, could a portfolio include previous annual reviews that show how well you performed in the previous job?
They could, as long as it's not proprietary and there's nothing proprietary in there. You could also include copies of certificates or licenses that you have. If you don't have letters of recommendation and you have people who recommended you, not endorsed your skills on LinkedIn, but actually wrote LinkedIn recommendations, you could arrange those on a sheet and present that if they asked. You could be really, really creative about what's in your portfolio. Any questions about the portfolio? Any other questions? Nope, okay. One word of warning, do not include names on a reference sheet that you have not previously checked with. Nobody likes to be surprised, and you never know when they'll be called. So any name that you have listed on your reference sheet, you should have talked to. And if you're going to an interview, you should make sure that they have the posting, your resume and cover letter that you sent in for that posting. And then after the interview, check in with them and tell them how the interview went, just in case they're talked to. Never ever want to catch somebody by surprise. All right, so if we talk about branding, one might think how you visually show up in the world with your resume and cover letter wouldn't matter so much because it's all digital. When you upload your resume into an application, 9.9% of the time the information is sucked out and put into an applicant profile. But the hiring manager does receive a printout of the resume that you submitted. So you need it to look good. So here's a resume that is visually appealing. It has white space. It has things on it that aren't necessarily needed right now. You do not need to include your address or the city and state that you're from. You do need to include your phone number and email, and your LinkedIn profile if it is up to date. Can I make it larger? I can try, but I'm not promising anything. It will be in the handout. So no, I'm sorry, I can't make it larger. But it will be in the email that you get so you can see it. And this,
Sandra,
what?
is it possible that the person trying to make it larger, they should have right next to your name, there should be a percentage. Mine is at 53, and they click the plus, they'll be able to enlarge their individual screen.
Oh, that's a great thing to know. Thank you, Lana. I didn't even know that. Good point. This is a functional resume, which means it highlights skills and has the employment on the bottom. I would suggest that you upload a chronological resume because the way the information is sucked out of this type of resume and put into the applicant tracking system will cause you to do a lot of editing because they look for the employer, the length of employment, and what you accomplished at that employer. So this is a really nice resume maybe for networking to highlight your skills. But if you upload a resume, I would suggest uploading a chronological, and they will talk about that when you take the resume workshop. And then this is a cover letter that is not branded, but you can change it and brand it so it looks more like your resume. Again, notice how this is really not. Oh, good information. People check your chats. People are sharing really awesome information. So this cover letter is sufficient, but it does not look professional. Where this continues the branding of the resume, has white space, which is helps with the reading, and is really, really good. So I can't believe that we're through this already. We have a lot of time for questions. Um, so someone's been out of the job market for 5 years. Do you still use your former? Lana, I lost that comment.
1 second. Some came after that. I don't see the someone come out of there. What are all these doing? I just see the can you make it larger? I don't see the lost one.
Oh, maybe it was.
Somebody is telling them how to zoom in, which we try to do. I've seen government application require information on order of jobs and time and any advice. Did we answer that question already?
So say it again.
I've seen government application require different information on the order of jobs and timing. Any advice?
So just follow their directions. But somebody asked about a cover letter.
Oh
I,
yeah, I saw that. It was saying just 1 second. I saw that. It says who actually benefited from the cover letter.
yeah, so put in the chat, what is more dreadful to you, a cover letter or a resume? Which do you dislike doing the most? Which is your least
Okay.
favorite, cover letter or resume? Yep, it's pretty much cover letter. So cover letters are very important for state jobs, right? They're looked at. They might not be read, but they're noted that you did them. So you need, if you're applying for any governmental job, to do a cover letter. I used to work for Lee Hecht Harris, which is an outplacement firm that businesses like Target, Ecolab, General Mills employs to help their C-suite and a little bit lower, and sometimes the general workforce with outplacement services. It's a gift as after they've let you go. And we've had, one of my jobs was to have employer panels for the C-suite and a little lower people. So they were the HR department at businesses who would come in, and the question always, thank you for that resource about resumes, always, always came and asked, well, what about a cover letter? And the response was about 50% of the time they're read, but they're always noted. And if there's two applicants that are very close or similar, or each could actually do the job and be a good team member, they look at the cover letter. So you never ever want to not do a cover letter. And someone said they found once you get a base cover letter, you can modify it. If the jobs that you're applying for are similar, and you have to make sure that you use the keywords in your cover letter, which are as important in the cover letter as in the resume, in that cover letter. Somebody put in the link to the GovJob article on resumes. And someone's a former truck rider. No, yeah, so maybe truck drivers don't need resumes. I found out that even helping people apply for Cub Food, they need a very simple resume to continue the process. So somebody asked about what advice is for someone who has been in one line of work for almost 20 years, but now wants to switch careers. So her resume is not going to have anything that shows I've done what I've done for the new career. That's where transferable skills come in. You need to word your accomplishments from your previous employment in a way that they reflect the keywords and tasks needed in the new job. And the example that I've given earlier, if you've been an elementary school teacher for 20 years and now you want to get into training in industry, the learning theory is the same. Some of the classroom management stuff is the same. Some of the development of courses would be the same. So how do you highlight the skills that you have that are transferable? And you do that in your cover letter and in your resume. Someone has talked about Chat GPT, and I think that it's a really great way to start. So you can say, Chat GPT, write me a resume for this job. This is my experience. I would never, ever, ever just submit what ChatGPT gives you. Some of the giveaways are using the same word over and over again within the same job experience and from job experience to other, like coordinated, 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 coordinated. Sometimes the grammar is atrocious. You always need to check for spelling. It's a great structure for both your resume and your cover letter. It should never be the end of the process. Never. How many people have used ChatGPT for a resume or a cover letter? Put it in the chat. Yes or no? So someone used something else called BARD, B-A-R-D. So those of you who have used it, have you learned anything? Do you have any tips to share? Oh, somebody used an AI reader to proofread their resume. That's a great. Wow, I hadn't thought about that. That's a great idea. So has anybody learned anything using ChatGPT? It's a good start, but you need to personalize, right? Use it as a base and add your own words. It remembers what you've done previously, so you can build on each resume. Great stuff. So someone's not looking for a career, but a decent job. Yep. So then you just have to, in your resume, it, work on what you can offer the company. It helps to customize for specific jobs. One of my sister-in-laws had an interview and she asked ChatGPT interview questions and she gave them the title of the job that she was applying for. It came up with 9 questions. She worked on answers to all of them, and at the interview process, she was asked almost word for word 7 of the 9 questions. Somebody recommends something that's called TEALHQ, but you do need to proofread. Awesome. I have not tried it yet, but I think it's worth looking into. I'm looking for a way to find out which companies do not practice unpaid labor, dealt with a lot of it in my past job. I'm not sure what that means, Kevin. I would check with your local career force center. Cool. Any other questions or comments? Oh, for applying for a position within science, when is a CV better than a resume? It depends on what kind of position in science that you're applying for. If it's an academic position, a CV is much better. If it's a lecturer or a professor, um, a CV would be better. If it's within a lab, you might not want to do a CV because CVs tend to be longer. You could take a resume maybe to 3 pages and list publications, sometimes even for lab work or specific work in science that is not an academic position. They want to know where you've published, because where you published is as important as what you've published. Oh, like working overnight and not being paid for it, that's illegal. So I don't think that there's any way that you can find out about unpaid labor because it's illegal. And if they ask you to work overtime and not get paid for it, you have to decide if you want to take that to the labor board. All right, so if you're exempt, there are now laws about that, depending on how much they pay you. So I know that fast food and retail places are very well known for making people managers and putting them in exempt positions and paying them very little, but making them work a lot of hours. And so now there are rules against that, and I would look them up. So I would have, for a scientific position, I would say, I would add abbreviated list of publications, not all of them. When talking about salaried positions, got it. No, you can go up to 2 pages for your resume. So can your employer say anything about you other than that you work there? One way of getting around that question is they can be asked, would they hire you back? And that's a legitimate question. Just so you know, most state jobs are hourly, even in most manager positions. Larry's been instructed to keep his resume under 1 page. So Larry, what kinds of positions are you applying for? So somebody wanted to know where they can, so the resume that was shown during branding was skill-based. A CV is an academic resume. And I will go back to that screen. So I'm going to share my screen again. So this is a skill-based resume that highlights your skills and has just your employment history on the bottom. But this highlights what your skills and strengths are. And this is called a skills-based versus a chronological. And you can find those that format on careerforcemn.com. Lana, do you want to put the link to that in the chat?
Put the link to
The skill-based template for resumes. I'll find it.
yeah, hold on 1 second. Is this something that we send in a follow-up email or this is something
No,
different?
no, we don't follow this. This is like you have to go to careerforcemn.com and put in resume in the search bar, and then go to the resume page, and they have different templates. Any other questions? We still have 18 minutes. Nope, you only need to go back 10 to 15 years, and they'll cover that in more detail in the resume workshop. Right, so the skills that you highlight are skills that are germane to the job you're applying for. So if you're applying for an accountant, you're not going to want to say how well you plan events. Also about state jobs, they've scrubbed them, which means if an undergraduate is not required, that's no longer listed as a minimum requirement for the job. How do you get along that with what they hire? You don't worry about it, and you sell yourself at the interview process. So again, about why you were let go, please contact your local Career Force Center. And what's really great about the Career Force Center is that we offer a plethora of things that will help you find your job. So besides the many virtual workshops, and careerforcemn.com is a really deep and valuable website. You should spend some time just playing around with it. We also have a staff that can help you with your resume, can help you with interview practice, can help you with your LinkedIn profile. They can maybe, if you go and contact the people in your area, they might know more about the job market in your particular location. We also have vocational rehab services, which help people with all kinds of disabilities. And we have vet services. So if you're a vet, they work specifically with employers who would love, 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 love to hire a vet. So you never know what you can find at your Career Force Center unless you reach out. There are job clubs. There are multiple of different job clubs. Here in South Minneapolis, we have a hybrid job club, which is in person as well as virtual every Thursday morning. There's one up in Thief River Falls that I know about. I think there might even be others around the state. If you just go to careerforcemn.com, type in the search engine job club, you'll get all kinds of stuff. You only need to go back 10 to 15 years. You do not have to go back 20. Right, I did say that the state jobs no longer list as a minimum requirement an undergraduate if it's not needed for the job. And I would always upload a chronological resume. And they're looking for the skill-based resume, Lana. I would always upload a chronological resume to the state website. Please don't go back 20 years unless there's some spectacular job that you had that you want to highlight. I helped a gentleman with his LinkedIn profile, and the gentleman was into his late 50s, and he had listed on LinkedIn the first job out of law school. And I asked him why he wanted to list that there, because that was way farther back than he needed to be. And he said, getting that job out of law school was like going to Harvard or Yale for law school. And so it said a lot about his qualifications. And that's why he kept it there. So somebody asks if you have skills that you haven't used since a previous job that is older than 15 years ago, how do you feature those skills on your resume? If you find a need to feature them and you're doing a chronological, you can do other professional experience and just list those skills. You don't need to list the employer or where you received them. All right, 3 more minutes. Please visit your local Career Force Center, either virtually or in person. You will receive this presentation in an email, recorded and as a slide deck. And you'll receive the list of job Career Force centers. Thank you very much for spending this hour with us. It was great. And visit the other workshops. Every workshop has great information in it, and is well worth attending. All righty. Lana, any last minute whatevers before we go?
No, just thank yous in here right now.
All right. Take care, everyone, and have a great week. And if you're at least in the Twin Cities, stay warm.